Evola describes the modern world as suffering from an invasion of unleashed spirituality, rather than lacking the supernatural. This neo-spiritualism, flourishing amidst Western crisis, includes spiritualism, various occultisms, and psychoanalysis, creating a spiritual chaos. This phenomenon is driven by a general impulse for evasion from suffocating modern civilization, a reaction against squalid materialism and rationalism, the decay of traditional religion, like Catholicism, and the inherent human need for the supernatural. This spiritual chaos risks fundamental harm to the human personality. Many confuse the truly supernatural with the infranatural, forces below the level of the conscious, such as established personality, leading to spiritual regression and becoming tools for forces that are destructive to inner unity. This inferior psychic realm is eminently nature, existing in states where lucid consciousness fades. In contrast, the true supernatural path demands active, clear consciousness and ascetic will to transform consciousness into superconsciousness, integrating rather than destroying the personality. The non-material sphere contains two antithetical domains: the vast natural order, inferior, and the true supernatural order, superior. Spiritism spearheaded modern neo-spiritualism, drawing attention to extranormal phenomena previously ignored. Psychic research confirms the reality of these phenomena under scientific control. Medianity is defined as a method used to propitiate or accentuate the disintegration of the internal unity of the person. Through the cultivation of medianity, the medium transforms into the organ for the manifestation in our world of forces and influences that are extremely varied but always subpersonal. Subpersonal forces are influences and energies that operate below the level of the conscious established personality, typically accessed in states of reduced consciousness. Spiritists claim these phenomena experimentally prove the survival, immortality of the dead. However, neither spiritists nor researchers can truly determine the causes, which occur in states of reduced or paralyzed consciousness. Critically, the manifesting entities are typically spirits, residual vital energies, larvae, left behind by the deceased. These are automatic, often impersonal remnants, sometimes animated by non-human inferior influences. The true souls of the dead reside in transcendent states, far from the medium's world. The psychic/occult zone accessed is the infranatural, not the supernatural. Opening passively to this world is a descending regressive action along the scale of spirituality, placing the subject in the orbit of forces below the level of the human personality. Psychic phenomena, like extrasensory perception or ESP, are confirmed as relating to unconscious processes or states of reduced consciousness, highlighting their regressive subpersonal character. Psychoanalysis is a generalized depth psychology that places the unconscious as the primary deterministic psychic force subjecting the ego. It disowns the true sovereign, reducing reality to the subpersonal, mistaking this derivative for the metaphysical root. Lacking spiritual discipline, psychoanalysis offers only abdication, sublimation, or surrender, and is analogous to medianity, risking regression and personality disintegration. The true supernatural path demands active superconsciousness and ascetic will. Theosophism is a new current, founded 1875 by H.P. Blavatsky, distinct from traditional theosophy, knowledge of the divine. It arose as a reaction against materialism and the Church. The main critique is that it is a heterogeneous and syncretistic mix of doctrines, confusing authentic metaphysical visions, often Eastern Indian, with Western/modern prejudices and personal visions/experiences lacking critical discernment or control. Some core issues with Theosophism are described as: 1. Karma. The traditional concept of karma, action causality, as universal deterministic law that presupposes individual freedom is replaced by a modern, deterministic, moralistic, and evolutionary progression. The liberative potential is lost. The liberative potential is found in the traditional concept of karma to promote profound spiritual clarity, objectivity, and self-mastery. By understanding that one is solely responsible for the causes one creates, one is freed from moralistic concepts like fault or merit in the Western sense, and instead becomes acutely aware that every action leads to an inevitable consequence. This awareness provides the foundation needed for superior spiritual realization. 2. Reincarnation. The sophisticated traditional view of the survival of the Atma, eternal self, or the decomposition of the soul, is reduced to a monotonous series of personal, earthly existences. This view applies to the infrapersonal life as desire, antarabhava, not the true personal soul. 3. Anti-supernaturalism. Theosophism abolishes the opposition between the conditional world, samsara, and true spiritual liberation, conceiving the supreme goal as the end of an evolutionary development. Its ideals lean towards a degenerate fusion with the undifferentiated one life, supporting democratic, egalitarian values. Theosophism, often founded or propagated by figures exhibiting messianic visionary tendencies, like Blavatsky, risks being a dangerous adulteration of Eastern wisdom that prevents contact with true higher spirituality. Evola examines the doctrines of Rudolf Steiner, which originated in 1913 as a reform of Theosophism. The primary criticisms include 1. Heterogeneous origins. Anthroposophy is a mixture of theosophist elements, Christianity, and a demand for spiritual science. This results in a rigid system that contains confusing visionary fluxes. 2. Evolutionary determinism. It adopts the theosophist errors, karma, reincarnation, cosmic races, subtle bodies, but intensifies them into a fatal, predetermined world evolution. This deterministic historicist view abolishes the distinction between the natural and the true supernatural, subjecting all human destiny to the category of time. 3. Humanistic reduction. Steiner intentionally replaced theosophia, knowledge of the divine, with anthroposophia, knowledge of man. This reflects the dominant Western demon of humanism, placing humanity as the center and end goal. 4. Misinterpretation of Christianity. Steiner incorporates the Christ event into his determinism, viewing it as the culmination of planetary evolution necessary to grant humanity the I, self-consciousness, spiritual individuality. This elevates the concept of spiritual man, but simultaneously degrades Christ to a mere solar logos. 5. Flawed methodology. While demanding a spiritual science of the suprasensible, a clear objective vision replacing passive mysticism, Steiner fails to deliver. His seeing is criticized as mere naturalistic chronicle of phenomena rather than intellectual comprehension. 6. Subtle bodies and immortality. Anthroposophy describes various bodies: physical, etheric, astral, mental, and 3 superior bodies: manas, buddhi, atma. Positively, this concept helps map the process of expanding clear self-consciousness and conquering the unconscious forces, destruction of the unconscious. Negatively, Steiner rehistoricizes these superior conquests, seeing them as inevitable evolutionary stages for all humanity on future planets. 7. Rejection of transcendence. Steiner defines the path of the true initiate as one of service to humanity's evolution, condemning those who seek withdrawal into transcendent worlds as belonging to a black lodge. This further confirms the movement's metaphysical insensitivity and anti-supernatural evolutionary bias. 8. Dangers of self-initiation. The emphasis on individual initiation, auto-initiation, relying solely on human forces and exercises is problematic, as the system lacks the protection of a regular superior influence. Evola warns that the founder himself did not escape the dangers of occult experiences. Neo-mysticism is characterized by an accentuated subjective, irrational, and ecstatic element in spiritual experience, valuing sensation and rapture over lucid control and clarity. This is criticized as passive, relating more to the soul, anima, than the spirit, and lacking genuine intellectual comprehension. J. Krishnamurti was the figure designated by the Theosophical Organization, the Order of the Star of the East, as the world teacher. In 1929, he dissolved the order and announced his independent doctrine. His core doctrine is liberate life from the ego. Key criticisms of his views include 1. Rejection of authority and tradition. He rejects masters, traditions, and systems, stating, as soon as you follow someone, you cease to follow the truth. This promotes spiritual anarchism and individualism. 2. Ambiguous concept of self. He equates true self with life, which is described as indifferentiated, mutable, spontaneous, and unbounded. Analogous to Bergsonian élan vital or Western irrationalism, not true eternal reality. This confuses the perpetually changing realm, samsara, with the eternal center. 3. Passive dissolution. His path relies on intense desire and aspiration to eliminate barriers, leading to the spontaneous, sudden appearance of the unknown, when the mental flux and automations of the ego are suspended. This approach, similar to certain schools of Zen or Christian quietism, is viewed as achieving liberation via a passive collapse of the ego, resulting in the personality descending and entering the orbit of inferior forces. 4. Danger for the modern man. Proposing freedom through the destruction of the ego, the original sin of modern man, to the modern Western individual, already lacking internal cohesion, is deemed unwise, potentially leading to chaos and dangerous misinterpretation. Evola concludes that true liberation requires active asceticism and the reinforcement of the ego's conscious form, not its passive destruction. Esoteric Catholicism and integral traditionalism evaluate whether Catholicism, criticized for failing to meet modern spiritual needs due to its focus on faith, moralism, and social issues, can offer a transcendent path. Evola concludes, 1. Christian initiation is fundamentally incompatible with faith. 2. Integral traditionalism seeks the universal metaphysical essence within Catholic doctrine, rejecting its claim of novelty or exclusivity. 3. The doctrine of vicarious atonement, redemption by Christ, is metaphysically absurd, relying on a deterministic quasi-karma logic. 4. Catholic ideals prioritize sanctification, moral, over great liberation, ontological. 5. Rituals and sacraments rely on objective magical potency, independent of morality, but this necessary transmission of superior power via a true pontifex is likely lost today. Therefore, true integrated esoteric Catholicism is currently non-existent, merely a dream. Naturalism/primitivism is a regression. Savages are declining residues, not origins. The Superman doctrine of Nietzsche, Dostoevsky, based on ascesis of pure will, is a limit point. If confined to human reality, this extreme self-overcoming risks a short circuit, leading to ascesis for ascesis itself, and creating the obsessed, dangerous tools for obscure forces. True surpassing requires transcendence via initiatic death. This self-affirmation of overcoming realizes a closed circuit or a system confined to human reality. The individual attempts to incorporate something not of this earth into their human frame, using only human will and energy. This process involves a systematic destruction of all external supports, moral idols, and objective values, leading to the assertion of the pure, unconditional will as the sole lawgiver and creator of value. A short circuit occurs when this pure, accumulated potential of will, confined strictly to human reality and the children of the earth, reaches saturation. The human person has a limited potential that it can withstand. When the will to power is quintessentially accumulated and forced into this finite vessel, the tension becomes too high, causing a catastrophic breakdown. This short circuit signifies the failure of the individual to sustain this extreme internal pressure. It leads to the collapse or tragedy seen in those who followed this path, who are often called saints maledetti, accursed saints. The outcome of this short circuit is the transformation of the superuomo into the obsessed. In the obsessed, the heightened potential and pure, untransfigured will, when forced to act, lead to actions beyond good and evil. This extreme self-overcoming, confined to the human sphere, causes the individual to lose their internal self-possession. The obsessed becomes an unconscious or dangerous instrument for obscure forces or inferior forces. This relates to the concept that every spiritual deviation or uncontrolled evocation risks involving forces that are subpersonal and destructive to inner unity. Evola emphasizes that there is only one way to avoid this catastrophic fate and truly surpass the human condition. The path requires opening a way to transcendence and recognizing that the supernatural order is the only place where the true ideal of the Superman can be realized. This means that the goal must be something beyond the naturalistic, human, and earthly realm. The necessary point of separation and transformation is not the physical suicide exemplified by Kirillov, but rather what traditional teaching defines as initiatic death. This process, found in authentic initiations, allows the individual to advance and become a different nature, the no longer man, integrating the will into the transcendent sphere instead of destroying the personality in the short circuit. Evola further criticizes Satanism. Satanism is the extreme modern trend. Metaphysically, Satan is the adversary and the principle of perversion, contamination, and blasphemy used in rites like black masses. Modern groups, e.g., Church of Satan, often reduce this to a banal neo-paganism that affirms carnal life against Christian morality. True Satanism involves dangerous, destructive evocations of infernal forces released by shattering traditional spiritual form. Initiatic currents and high magic offer an alternative to contemporary spiritualism, focusing on active development. Magic has two senses. One, a practical science operating on subtle, form-concealing energies. Two, high magic, an initiatic attitude emphasizing the virile, active, supernormal integration of personality to achieve an ascendant transcendence. Gurdjieff's teachings emphasize that the ordinary man is a machine living in waking sleep. The path requires realizing one's non-being, separating the false person from the deep essence, leading to conditional immortality through internal crystallization. Kremertz, Meyrink, and Eliphas Levi confirm this realism. Immortality is waking up and attaining a spiritual form. The human personality usually does not truly survive death, dissolving like air, because it is only a transient, historical individual. Magical ascesis involves conscious neutrality and actively eliminating the false ego's elements, leading to the incorruptible nucleus of superpersonality. Ceremonial magic, e.g., Kremertz's Miriam, risks creating a myth of oneself by separating the operator from the evoked powers, gods, demons, forming a spiritual barrier that limits full integration. True integration requires directly transforming base forces into the incorruptible man. The ideal is the mage, who is liberated from both human and divine constraints. This path, The viral aspect of primordial tradition is the way of high magic and is available to very few. Modern aspirations to power, however, are merely naturalistic and luciferic, constituting a rigid barrier to true realization. Evola concludes by addressing potential reader disappointment in the preceding critical analysis, noting that following the point of truth often fails to attract sympathy from either sectarian spiritualists or their critics. The goal of the book was to provide orientation by clearly defining the two antithetical directions: the subpersonal, the dangers of neo-spiritualist evocations, and the superpersonal, the rare domain of initiatic possibilities and high ascesis. To defend the human personality, individuals must adopt the traditional vision of the world, leading to an internal revolt against the modern world. In this era of the irrational and the collective demonism, facing expanded spiritual horizons requires having the will to impose a limit and close off Luciferian openings below or above. The spiritual should function as knowledge, not temptation. The true supernatural path is defined by transfiguring conversion, absolute detachment, and aristocratic right. For the average modern person, adopting the classical vision is recommended, emphasizing form, self-control, and clarity.